It all started on a rainy Tuesday morning. The kind of rain that makes the streets look like rivers and the air smell like wet asphalt. I was rushing out the door, already late for work, when I noticed something strange in my mailbox. An envelope. Plain, beige, unmarked, except for my name written in black ink. No return address. No stamp. Someone had put it there by hand. At first, I thought it was just another neighborhood flyer or maybe a letter from a kid selling cookies. But as soon as I picked it up, I realized it was heavier than paper should be. Almost as if something was inside. Curiosity won. I tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 6 words typed in bold, all capital letters. You don't know what they hid. My stomach sank. No explanation. No signature. Nothing else. But at the bottom of the envelope, tucked in the corner, was a small silver key. I stood there, dripping wet in the rain, staring at the key like it was some kind of riddle from a bad movie. My rational mind told me to throw it away, ignore it, move on. But something deeper whispered, "This is not a mistake. This was meant for you." The rest of the day, I couldn't focus. At work, everyone spoke in blurred voices while that phrase kept echoing in my head. You don't know what they hid. By evening, I had convinced myself it was a prank. Maybe a bored teenager from the neighborhood. Maybe even my co-workers trying to mess with me. But then, the second envelope arrived. This time, it was slipped under my apartment door. Same handwriting. Same weight. I opened it with shaky hands. Inside was another note. The key opens the place you never thought to check. And again, no explanation. Just a second key. Slightly bigger. Rusted. Old. That night, I couldn't sleep. My heart raced every time I looked at those 2 keys lying on the kitchen table, glinting under the weak light. I didn't know if I was walking into a mystery or a trap. But deep down, I knew one thing. My life would never be the same again. When I came home after work, I immediately knew something was wrong. Usually, our house greeted me with the smell of dinner and the voice of my wife, who was either laughing on the phone with a friend or watching a TV series. But that evening, there was silence. I put my keys on the table and suddenly noticed the bedroom door was slightly open. The light was on. I slowly stepped inside, and my heart sank. On the bed lay my wife's phone. The screen was shattered, as if it had been thrown against the wall. And next to it, her ring. Our wedding ring. I called her name. Silence. On the nightstand stood a mug, steam still rising from it. She had left just moments ago. I grabbed the phone, but it wouldn't turn on. At that moment, I felt everything inside me turn upside down. From outside came the sound of a car. I looked out the window and saw a black SUV. It was slowly driving away from our house. I don't remember how I ended up outside, but I remember running, shouting, waving my arms. The car only sped up. My mind was chaos. Where was my wife? Why had her things been left behind, but she was gone? Who was in that vehicle? I called the police. They arrived 20 minutes later, but from their eyes I could tell they weren't going to take this seriously. Maybe she went to a friend's, maybe you had a fight, they said. But I knew my wife. She would never do that. That night, I didn't close my eyes once. One thought kept repeating in my head, this was an abduction. The next day, I received an email. No sender address. Only one sentence. Don't look for her, or you'll lose everything. I didn't go to work the next morning. Instead, I sat in the kitchen, staring at that single sentence on my laptop screen. Don't look for her, or you'll lose everything. The words burned into my mind. My hands trembled as I read them again and again. Whoever sent this knew me, knew my wife, knew where we lived. This wasn't random. I tried to reply, but the email bounced back. No return address, no trace. It was like it came from nowhere. That's when I decided, if the police wouldn't help me, I'd find her myself. I went upstairs to her closet. Most of her clothes were still there. Nothing was packed, nothing was missing, except for her favorite red scarf. She never went anywhere without it. I searched through the drawers, through her bag, her notebooks, her diaries. And then I found it, a small piece of paper tucked inside her journal. It was an address. Written in her handwriting. Just one line. Warehouse 19, Dockside. My heart started pounding. Why would she write this down? Was it a clue she left for me? Or was she meeting someone there before she disappeared? By the evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove to Dockside. The place was abandoned, with rusted containers and broken fences. As I pulled up near Warehouse 19, I killed the engine and sat in silence. The air smelled of saltwater and gasoline. The warehouse door was slightly open. Just enough for someone to slip inside. I stepped out of the car, every nerve in my body screaming at me to turn back. But I couldn't. Not when my wife's ring was still on that nightstand. Not when I had nothing left to lose. I pushed the door open. The first thing I saw was the red scarf. It was tied to a chair in the middle of the room. And then, a voice behind me. Cold. Come. Almost amused. I told you not to come. I froze. My breath caught in my throat, and every instinct screamed at me to run. But I didn't. I turned slowly. In the shadows stood a man I'd never seen before. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black from head to toe. His face was half hidden, but his eyes were sharp, calculating, like a predator watching its prey. He stepped closer, the sound of his boots echoing through the empty warehouse. I warned you, he said, tilting his head slightly. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. Where's my wife? I demanded, my voice shaking. A smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled something out. At first, my chest tightened, thinking it was a gun. But it wasn't. It was a small, silver flash drive. He tossed it onto the chair, right next to the red scarf. The sound it made when it landed echoed unnaturally loud. You want answers, he said. Start with this. But once you do, there's no going back. I stared at the flash drive, then at him. Why are you doing this? Who are you? He leaned in close, so close I could smell the faint trace of tobacco and cold metal on him. And then he whispered, I'm the reason your wife is still alive. And just like that, he turned, walked to the back door of the warehouse, and disappeared into the night. I stood frozen for what felt like hours, the silence pressing against my ears. Finally, with trembling hands, I picked up the flash drive. My reflection glimmered faintly on its surface. Back in my car, I shoved it into my laptop. The screen flickered. A single folder appeared. Inside were dozens of photos. Some of my wife, walking down the street, sitting in cafes, even standing in our kitchen, all taken without her noticing. Others were of me. At work. Leaving the grocery store. Sleeping. And then, the last photo stopped my heart. It was of me. Standing in the warehouse. Taken just minutes ago. My blood ran cold. The photo was impossible. The angle, it had been taken from above, like there was a hidden camera in the rafters of the warehouse. I slammed the laptop shut, my heart pounding in my chest like a drum. My first thought was paranoia. Were they watching me right now? In my car? In my home? Everywhere. I drove back in silence, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. When I finally pulled into the driveway, the house looked wrong. Too still. Too quiet. Like a stage set waiting for the actors to return. I stepped inside, calling her name. Nothing. The silence answered me back. But then, click. The lamp in the living room flicked on by itself. And there she was. My wife. Sitting on the couch, hands neatly folded in her lap, eyes fixed straight ahead. But there was something off. Her face was pale, her movements stiff, like she was forcing herself to stay calm. I rushed toward her, relief and fear tangled inside me. Where have you been? I thought. Don't. Her voice was sharp, almost robotic. Don't ask me anything right now. Just listen. She handed me a sealed envelope. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. On it, in neat typewriter font, were 4 words. Trust no one. Run. I looked at her, confusion and terror flooding me. What is this? What's going on? Her eyes filled with tears, but she still didn't move. "They're already here." And then, the sound of tires screeching outside. Multiple car doors slamming. Heavy footsteps approaching the house. I realized, too late, that the nightmare was only beginning. The pounding on the front door shook the walls. Whoever they weren't hiding anymore. I grabbed my wife's hand. "Back door. Now." We sprinted through the kitchen. My heart was hammering so loud I thought it would give us away. She kept glancing over her shoulder, whispering, "They found us! They found us!" Just as I reached for the back door handle. Crack. The front door was kicked in. Voices thundered inside the house. Male. Cold. Organized. We bolted out the back, crashing through the wet grass of the yard. I didn't even stop to look, just dragged her toward the car. But when we reached it, my stomach dropped. The tires were slashed. My wife gasped, clutching my arm. They planned this. They knew we'd run. I looked around, desperate. The neighbor's fence. Woods beyond it. That was our only chance. We scrambled over, tearing our clothes on the splintered wood, and disappeared into the trees just as flashlights cut across the yard behind us. Shouts erupted. They were spreading out. Hunting us. Branches whipped at my face as we stumbled deeper into the forest. Every sound, the crack of a twig, the crunch of leaves, felt like a death sentence. Finally, after what felt like hours, we collapsed behind a fallen log. I pressed a finger to my lips. My wife's breathing was ragged, trembling. Then, slowly, she reached into her jacket pocket and pulled something out. A small, black USB drive. I stared at it. "What is that?" Her eyes locked on mine. "The reason they'll never let us go." And just as she said it, a voice echoed through the trees. Calm. Measured. Almost amused. "Run as far as you like. We always catch what's ours." My blood ran cold at the sound of that voice. It wasn't random. It wasn't distant. It was close. I pulled my wife down lower behind the log, forcing her into the dirt. My whisper was sharp. "What's on that drive?" Her hand shook as she clenched it tighter. "Proof. Of everything. Names, accounts, meetings. The people behind this. The ones who—" A snap of a branch cut her off. Flashlights flickered through the trees, sweeping back and forth. They were circling us like wolves. I leaned in. "Why didn't you tell me?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Because the less you knew, the safer you were." "But now," she swallowed hard, "now they'll kill us both." I tried to process, but before I could, another voice, deeper, colder, echoed from the darkness. "Hand it over, and maybe we'll let him live." They knew exactly where we were. I stood slowly, raising my hands. My wife's fingers clutched at my arm, desperate, but I gently pried them off. "Stay down," I whispered. The beam of a flashlight hit me square in the face, blinding. I shielded my eyes, heart slamming in my chest. Shadows moved, 3, maybe 4 men. All armed. One of them stepped forward, his voice smooth like poisoned honey. "We don't want you. We want her. And what she stole." I froze. She stole. I turned, staring at my wife. She wouldn't meet my eyes. My throat tightened. "Tell me you didn't." But the look on her face said everything. And that's when I realized, maybe I wasn't running from them. Maybe I was running from her. The silence between us was deafening. I could barely hear the men closing in, because all I could focus on was her face, pale, trembling, but with something else buried beneath the fear. Guilt. "I didn't want you to find out this way," she whispered, her voice breaking. My stomach twisted. "Find out what?" She lowered her gaze, gripping the drive so tight her knuckles turned white. "I wasn't just their target. I used to work for them." The words punched the air out of my lungs. The forest around me blurred. For a second, all I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. "You what?" "I left. I tried to get away. But before I did, I took this." She lifted the drive slightly, as if it were both her salvation and her curse. "Evidence. Enough to destroy them." Behind us, one of the men barked an order. "Move. Flank them." Boots crunched on dry leaves, closing in fast. You lied to me. My voice was low, shaking with rage and disbelief. All these years, our marriage, was I just cover for you? Her eyes finally snapped up to mine, blazing with desperation. No. That was real. You were real. I left because of you. I stayed away from this life because of us. But they found me. They always find me. Branches snapped just feet away now. The men were circling like predators closing the kill. I felt trapped, torn between the woman I thought I knew, and the stranger standing before me. Then her hand shot out, gripping mine, pressing the cold metal of the flash drive into my palm. If anything happens to me, she whispered urgently, run. Don't look back. Get this to the authorities. Promise me. Before I could answer, a beam of light cut through the darkness and locked on us. Enough hiding, the voice growled. A gun cocked. And I knew, whatever happened next, nothing would ever be the same again. The beam of the flashlight burned into my eyes, and I threw up an arm to shield my face. Shadows moved all around us. The forest had become a cage, and the men tightening their circle were the bars. Put it down, one of them barked. His rifle glinted as he stepped forward. The drive. Now. I felt her fingers dig into my wrist, trembling but firm. She didn't speak, didn't even look at them. Her eyes stayed locked on mine, begging me to hold on just a little longer. Last chance, another voice snapped. Hand it over and maybe we'll let you both walk away. My laugh came out sharp, bitter. Yeah. You don't sound like the merciful type. The leader raised his weapon. You're right. I'm not. Time slowed. I felt her breath catch beside me. The world seemed to freeze in that split second, until she did something I never expected. She lunged forward. With a scream, she shoved me hard to the side, just as the gun went off. The crack echoed through the forest, shredding the night apart. I hit the ground, dirt exploding around me, the flash drive clenched tight in my fist. Get him! Someone shouted. Chaos erupted. Gunfire rattled through the trees. Sparks flew as bullets tore into bark. My pulse hammered in my throat as I scrambled behind a fallen log. I could barely see her through the haze of muzzle flashes and smoke. She was fighting, throwing herself at them with a wild, desperate strength I'd never seen before. But she was outnumbered. I wanted to run to her. Every instinct screamed at me to get up, to pull her away, to not let her disappear again. But her words still rang in my ears. If anything happens to me, run. And then I saw it. One of the men leveled his gun at her back. I didn't think. I just moved. I broke cover, charging through the chaos, every nerve on fire, my fist gripping the drive like it was the only thing anchoring me to this world. I hurled myself forward, colliding with the man just as his finger tightened on the trigger. The shot went wide, ripping into the trees instead of her. We crashed to the ground, his weapon skittering away in the dirt. Adrenaline drowned out everything, the shouts, the gunfire, even the pounding of my own heart. I only saw her. She was still standing, eyes wide with shock, chest heaving. For a split second, relief surged through me. She was alive. But then another shot cracked through the night. She staggered. The sound that tore out of me wasn't human. I caught her before she fell, my arms wrapping around her as her weight sank into me. Warmth spread across my hands. Too much warmth. No, 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 I whispered, my throat raw. Stay with me. Please, stay with me. Her lips moved, but the words were faint, broken. You have to finish this. Don't let them win. I wanted to argue, to promise her we'd make it out together. But looking into her eyes, I knew she already understood the truth, maybe better than I did. The men were regrouping. Flashlights cut through the dark. Voices shouted. I had seconds. I pressed my forehead to hers, swallowing the scream clawing its way up my chest. I'll finish it. I swear. Her hand brushed my cheek, the smallest, weakest touch, and then slipped away. Something inside me snapped. I grabbed the gun at my feet, fired blind into the night, and ran. Branches whipped at my face as I tore through the forest, the flash drive burning like a brand in my pocket. Behind me, their voices faded, swallowed by the dark. By the time I stumbled out onto the roadside, Blood on my shirt that wasn't mine. The world felt hollow. Empty. But in my fist, I still held the one thing she had given everything to protect. The drive. The proof. Her legacy. And as the first distant glow of headlights broke over the horizon, I made a silent vow. They might have taken her, but they would never silence the truth. Not while I was still breathing. I stood in the middle of the road, barely breathing, clutching the flash drive in my pocket as if it were my only heart. Headlights approached. Seconds stretched. The car stopped a few meters away. A black sedan, tinted windows. The door opened. "Get in," said a voice from the darkness. I raised the gun. My finger trembled on the trigger. "Who are you?" My voice cracked. A figure leaned forward, and in the beam of the headlights, a face appeared. A woman. Not young, but with a look that told me she had seen too much. "You don't have time for questions. If you want to live, get in." I froze. Every nerve screamed, "It's a trap." But something deep inside whispered, "If you stay here, they'll find you in a minute." I took a step. Then another. I got into the back seat. The car sped away. "Who are you?" I repeated, clutching the flash drive tighter. She looked at me through the mirror. "The ones you fear call us the Shadow. But for you, I'm just an ally." An ally? My wife was killed before my eyes. I snapped. Because of this cursed flash drive. For a moment, her eyes flickered. "I know," she said quietly. "And that's exactly why we have to finish what she started." I clenched my teeth. Rage burned in my chest. Everything is on this drive. But I need someone I can trust. I leaned forward. "Answer me honestly. Did you know who she was?" The silence was heavy, like lead. Finally, the woman nodded. "Yes, we knew. And we warned her that one day this would happen." I sank back, feeling my world collapse completely. Everything I knew about my life was a lie. But in her eyes, there was something that kept me on the edge. Determination. "Where are we going?" I asked. Her grip on the wheel tightened. "To the place where everything will be decided. Where truth becomes a weapon." Ahead, the city lights pierced the darkness. And I knew there was no turning back. The car sped down the night highway. Wind howled through the cracks in the windows, headlights catching the occasional road sign in the dark. The woman, eyes fixed on the road, finally spoke. "This drive isn't just evidence. It's not just names and accounts. It contains protocols, plans, what they're preparing to do." "What exactly?" My fists clenched. She gave me a quick glance. "Bigger than you can imagine. If we expose this, half of the world's governments will collapse." Something tore inside my chest. "And for this, all of it, our life." I couldn't finish. "She knew what she was walking into," the woman said quietly. "But you can still finish what she started." We turned off the highway into an industrial zone. Rows of warehouses, empty containers, the distant hum of the port. The car stopped at a nondescript building with a rusty door. "This is the hub," she said. "The ones still resisting." Inside it was dark, but people met us, 3 men and a young woman with a laptop. Their faces were tense, weary, but their eyes burned with fire. "You brought him?" One of them looked straight at me. "Yes," she answered. "He has the drive." I pulled it out. The room fell silent. The girl plugged it into the computer, and the screen lit up with dozens of files. Tables. Documents. Videos of secret meetings. "Oh my God!" someone whispered. "This isn't just corruption. This is a coup." At that moment, an engine roared outside. Then another. Headlights flooded the windows. "They found us!" someone shouted. 1 second of silence, and suddenly everything erupted with sirens, floodlights, boots pounding against the pavement. I knew this was the end. "Upload everything to the net," I shouted. "Let the whole world see." The girl's trembling fingers flew across the keyboard. Windows rattled with explosions. The door splintered. I raised my weapon. My heart was pounding, but inside me there was only one feeling: resolve. And then the screen flashed green. Files began uploading. To dozens of servers. Live. The enemy stormed inside. Gunfire ripped the air apart. But it was already too late. "It's done," the girl screamed. "They can't stop it now." For the first time in what felt like forever, I smiled through the chaos. They could kill us. They could burn everything down. But the truth was already out. I looked out through the shattered window, into the night blazing with lights and screams, and whispered softly, "We did it. She won." The morning didn't begin with birdsong, but with screams. TVs, news sites, radio stations, all speaking at once about one thing. The leak. The documents. The evidence. People stared in disbelief. Ministers, generals, corporate magnates, their secret meetings, offshore accounts, conspiracies of a coup. The world shook. I sat in a dim apartment on the edge of the city, my shirt still smelling of smoke and forest dirt. In my hands, a mug of cold coffee. In my heart, emptiness. She hadn't lived to see this. But her war ended exactly the way she wanted. Truth had become a weapon. On the streets, protests erupted. Some demanded resignations, others, blood. Governments toppled, alliances fractured. And through the chaos, I knew, they would not forget me. The phone buzzed. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "You did what you promised," said a familiar woman's voice. The one who had saved me that night. "But this is only the beginning." The beginning? I laughed bitterly. I lost everything. "No," her voice was firm. "You found your role. Now they'll hunt you forever. But people will remember who exposed the truth." In the silence, I looked out the window. The city was choking on chaos, but within that chaos, something new was being born. I closed my eyes and whispered, "If my life was the price for this, then so be it." And for the first time in a long while, I felt not fear, but a strange relief. Because I knew, she hadn't died in vain.